The story begins in a happy kingdom ruled by a kind king and queen. They had everything, but there was one thing missing: a child. They prayed every day for a baby. One cold winter night, their wish came true. A beautiful baby girl was born, and they named her Snow White. As Snow White grew up, her parents taught her an important lesson. Yes, we are the rulers, but this kingdom truly belongs to the people who work hard for it. One day you will rule too, but always with kindness and honesty. Life was perfect, until one day the queen fell ill and passed away. The kingdom was left in sorrow. Sometime later, a beautiful woman came to the palace. The king was enchanted by her beauty and soon married her. She became the new queen, but she cared more about her looks than the kingdom or the king. She had a magical mirror that always told the truth. Every day the queen would ask it, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" The mirror's answers made her feel powerful, but only as long as it said she was the most beautiful. One day the mirror warned that the kingdom was about to be attacked. The king went off to war with his army, but he never returned. From then on, the evil queen ruled with cruelty. Snow White was forced to live as a servant, and over the years, people forgot there was once a princess. The kingdom grew dark, hunger spread, and hope faded. One day, while Snow White was cleaning the castle, a young man named Jonathan sneaked in to steal food. She caught him and said, "Stealing is wrong. If you ask the queen or the princess, they might help." Jonathan laughed. "Which princess? I don't think she's even alive." Hearing this broke Snow White's heart. She told him, "I am the princess and I want to help my people." Jonathan was doubtful. "If you are, why haven't you done anything yet?" he challenged, stealing some potatoes and leaving. His words stayed in Snow White's mind. She knew she had to act. She decided to talk to the queen. "You must care for the people," she said. "Use your wealth to help solve their problems. My father always taught me this. Every year we used to bake apple pies and share them with everyone." Hearing Snow White's words, the evil queen sneered, "These insects don't deserve such great food." Just then, a soldier caught Jonathan and dragged him in front of the queen. Furious, she punished him for stealing and for burning his own house in revenge. Jonathan looked sad and said, "I don't have a house." It turned out he was the leader of the thieves. Before all this, he and his friends used to work for the king. Hearing this, the queen shouted, "Throw him into the cellar," so loud that the whole palace will hear his screams. Snow White stepped forward and said, "You can't do that. Dad never punished anyone so harshly that they would rebel." Her words made the evil queen even angrier. In her fury, the queen ordered Jonathan to stand outside in the freezing cold, without any clothes. Then she harshly scolded Snow White. Feeling sad and helpless, Snow White began to sing a soft, heart-touching song. She remembered her parents and shared all the dreams she had for her people. After the song, she quietly freed Jonathan. The soldiers saw her and chased her, so Snow White ran away before they could catch her. Meanwhile, the evil queen sat again beside her magical mirror. She asked, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the most beautiful of all?" The mirror answered, "You are no longer the most beautiful. Someone else has come, Snow White. She is the most beautiful now." The queen's face twisted with anger and jealousy. She called her most loyal hitman and ordered, "Kill Snow White. Bring me her heart in this box." The hitman hesitated. Snow White seemed innocent to him. He didn't want to hurt her. But the queen hissed, "You don't understand. Behind that innocent face, she's a witch. She tells secrets about our kingdom to robbers from other lands." We see Snow White walking in the forest, picking apples. The hitman followed her but couldn't bring himself to kill her. Instead, he warned her, "The queen wants you dead. It's dangerous for you here. You should run away." He added, "The queen also knows something about your father, but she is hiding it." Hearing this, Snow White's fear grew. She ran deeper into the forest. The jungle was full of dangers. Every moment, she faced wild animals and scary creatures. Finally, she reached a strange, dangerous tree. Its roots tried to trap her. Before the tree could hurt her, the ground beneath her opened up. Snow White fell down into a different world. This new world was beautiful, but mysterious. All the small animals here were kind and gentle. They helped Snow White and took her to a tiny little house. Inside, everything was very small. There were 7 tiny beds lined up neatly. Snow White, scared and tired, lay down and tried to sleep on the 7 small beds. The animals softly covered her with a warm blanket. Now, in this magical place, we see 7 dwarfs. They were happily returning home after a long day of work. These dwarfs worked in diamond mines, digging precious diamonds and gems from the earth. But when they reached their home, they were shocked. They saw Snow White sleeping there. Seeing her, all the dwarfs got scared and ran around in panic, all except one small dwarf who stood still. Even he was about to run away, but Snow White walked slowly towards him and said hello. Before she could say more, the other dwarfs came back with their weapons, ready to protect their home and stop her. Snow White felt that the dwarfs didn't want her there, so she started to leave quietly. But as she was walking away, she thought, "If I leave here, where will I go?" So she turned back and decided to tell them everything. "My name is Snow White," she said. "The evil queen wants to kill me, so I ran away into the jungle. Then I found this place." Hearing her story, the dwarfs felt sorry for her. One by one, they introduced themselves, telling Snow White their names and how they worked in the diamond mines. Snow White smiled and said, "Now I understand why my father said the jungle is magical. Maybe it's because of this place and all of you." Meanwhile, the evil queen is shown again. She looks into her magic mirror and learns that Snow White is still alive. She opens the hitman's jewelry box. Inside she finds an apple. Furious at the hitman's betrayal, she screams in anger, her voice echoing wildly, "Whoever betrayed me will not be spared." She calls the hitman to her with her soldiers. Without mercy, she beats him harshly. The hitman knows his end is near. Before he dies, he begs the queen, "If you have even a little mercy in your heart, please spare Snow White." But the queen ignores him. She throws him into the dark cellar to die. Then she orders her soldiers, "Find Snow White in the jungle and bring her to me." Now back with Snow White and the dwarfs. Today was different from any other morning. The dwarfs were arguing and teasing the smallest dwarf again. Feeling sad, the little dwarf walked away. Snow White noticed and comforted him. She said, "Being sad won't solve anything. We have to face problems bravely." She taught him how to whistle, and soon the little dwarf's mood lifted. Later, when all the dwarfs returned home, everything was a mess. They started fighting again. "Who will do this work? Who will do that?" Snow White smiled and said, "All these chores you think are hard, if you do them together, they will become fun." She also noticed something else. Their anger wasn't because they hated each other. They just didn't know how to talk properly. Snow White patiently explained how to listen and speak with kindness. Snow White helped the dwarfs find a way to solve all their problems. Slowly, a big change came into their lives. They started singing and working happily together. Snow White shared stories from her childhood, how her kingdom was full of love when her parents were alive. She remembered the hitman's words. The evil queen was hiding a secret about her father. They all believed the king didn't die in the war. Maybe he was still alive. Snow White said to the dwarfs, "We can find him with the help of the robbers in the forest. They told me they once served the king." It was now time for the dwarfs to go to work, so they left. Snow White set off to find the robbers. While wandering in the forest, suddenly, someone grabbed her behind a tree. It was Jonathan, the boy who saved her from the queen's soldiers. Snow White told Jonathan, "I think the king is still alive." Jonathan nodded, "It might be true. I heard the king was captured in the war, but I don't know where he is." While they talked, Jonathan's companions arrived. They greeted Snow White with respect. Together, they planned to search for the king. Suddenly, many royal soldiers appeared. They had spotted Snow White. Jonathan and his men decided to protect her without hesitation. They stood ready to fight the soldiers. "Run away, Snow White," they told her. But the soldiers were many and the robbers were few. Snow White felt worried for her new friends. Then she had a clever idea. She quietly untied all the royal soldiers' horses nearby. The horses ran wild, causing chaos among the soldiers. This gave the robbers time to escape. Snow White climbed a tall mountain and shouted loudly, drawing the soldiers' attention to her. When the soldiers ran up the mountain, they found no Snow White, only a trap. Snow White had joined the robbers and they ran deep into the forest. At last they escaped the soldiers. Jonathan admired Snow White's bravery. "We will always be loyal to the king," he promised. "We lived comfortably when he was in charge." Suddenly, a soldier found their hiding place. He aimed an arrow at Snow White. Jonathan saw him and pushed Snow White aside. The arrow hit Jonathan instead. Jonathan's friends captured the soldier. Snow White decided to take Jonathan to the dwarfs for help, because one of them, Doc, knew medicine. He might be called Doc, but he wasn't really a doctor. Everyone knew Doc's real skill was to extract rocks and minerals. Hearing this, Jonathan's companions started arguing and getting angry at Doc. Snow White interrupted them. "What are you all doing? The evil queen wants us to fight and separate. She wants us to stop trusting each other and become selfish. But that's not true. We can solve every problem if we help one another." Everyone fell silent after hearing Snow White's wise words. Then Doc said, "I'm not a real doctor, but I will do my best to save Jonathan's life." Doc carried Jonathan inside his house. After some time, Doc came out with a sad look. Everyone looked at him curiously. Suddenly, Jonathan appeared from behind before Doc could say a word. Everyone sighed with relief seeing him alive, but Jonathan had lost much of his strength. They all started celebrating his survival, singing and dancing happily. Jonathan and Snow White came close to each other during the celebration, but then they remembered they were surrounded by many people. Jonathan and his companions decided that before sunrise, they would leave quietly into the forest to keep their secret safe. Snow White could stay safe there. Before leaving, Jonathan said, "I will be gone for 2 days. I can't return before then, but I promise when I come back, we will search for the king together." Snow White gave Jonathan a chain that her father had gifted her. She said, "This will remind you to come back." On his way into the forest, Jonathan fell into a trap. Before he could react, the evil queen's soldiers captured him and took him to the palace. The queen asked him, "Where is Snow White?" Jonathan tried to lie, "I don't know who Snow White is," but the chain around his neck gave him away. The queen pulled the chain and had Jonathan thrown into the basement. Then she started making magic with a mysterious this potion, her true face appeared. The beautiful queen was actually a witch. She drank the magical potion and started turning into an old witch. This was her real form, hidden by magic before. She held an apple and began chanting a poison spell. The magic would cause Snow White to fall into a deep sleep after eating the apple. Meanwhile, Jonathan struggled to free himself in the cellar. He even found the hitman there. Switching scenes, Snow White was shown after the dwarfs left for work. She was ready to search for her father, when suddenly an old lady appeared. Snow White did not recognize her. The old woman, who was really the witch in disguise, gave Snow White a locket and warned, "Jonathan is in great danger." Seeing the locket, Snow White felt she must save Jonathan. She was about to leave, but the old lady stopped her. The witch offered her the poisoned apple and said, "Eat this, we'll give you strength. Remember what your father said, love conquers all." Touched by her father's words, Snow White ate the apple, falling right into the witch's trap. At that moment, all the animals and birds from the dwarfs' home rushed off to warn them about Snow White's danger. As Snow White bit into the apple, darkness began to cloud her vision. She felt dizzy and whispered, "What is in this?" The evil witch smiled cruelly and spoke the very same words the evil queen had once used. At that moment, Snow White realized the truth. The old woman was the evil queen herself, her bitter enemy. Suddenly, Snow White fell into a deep, magical sleep. Dark storm clouds spread over the kingdom, covering it in gloom. The evil witch vanished into thin smoke, disappearing without a trace. Soon, the dwarfs and animals rushed back to Snow White's side. They found her lying motionless and feared the worst. They thought Snow White was gone forever. Unable to do anything else, they gently laid her down in a peaceful spot and covered her with flowers. Meanwhile, in the palace cellar, the hitman and Jonathan had broken a wall. Behind it was a secret water passage leading to the forest. The hitman encouraged Jonathan to run and escape. Jonathan hurried through the passage and noticed restless animals nearby. He knew something terrible had happened. As he approached the dwarf's home, his heart sank. He found Snow White lying still, seemingly lifeless. Sitting beside her, Jonathan mourned deeply and gently kissed her forehead. Suddenly, Snow White's eyes fluttered open. Everyone around rejoiced in happiness. Coming to her senses, Snow White told Jonathan, "It's all the evil queen's doing. She's a witch. She sent my father to war with a hidden plan, and she ordered her men to end him." They spoke urgently, planning their next steps. Just then, a single snowflake landed softly on Snow White's hand. That was the moment she realized the time had come to take control. She must save her kingdom by confronting the evil queen herself. The queen's reign of terror would end, and Snow White would bring love and hope back to the land. As Snow White returned to her kingdom, a glimmer of hope shone on the faces of her people. They gathered to welcome her home, full of faith and courage. But the evil queen, sensing the growing rebellion, came forth to face them. She watched with fury as Snow White and the people stood united against her. The evil queen stood tall, holding a delicate rose in one hand and a gleaming sword in the other. She addressed the people with a chilling voice. "Look, only beauty and power are fit to rule the throne." With a sinister smile, she brought the rose close to her lips, blew on it, and watched as the petals burst into flames. "See? Only power remains to rule this kingdom." She provocatively challenged Snow White to fight, but Snow White raised her hand gently and spoke to the queen's soldiers instead. "Remember the days when you were kind-hearted, when you served the king with honor, when you cared for one another, and life was comfortable and joyful. It wasn't long ago. Peace filled this kingdom, justice was for everyone, and happiness was a way of life. I only wish to restore that peace again." Hearing her words, the soldiers looked at one another and slowly began to lower their weapons. They disarmed themselves, pledging to stand with Snow White. Seeing her power slip away, the queen's face twisted with rage. She lunged at Snow White, but suddenly, a knife flew from her hand, thrown with precision. An arrow shot past, and the attacker was revealed, a brave dwarf who had saved Snow White's life before. One by one, all the dwarfs stepped forward, joining Snow White and the people. United, they stood against the evil queen. Enraged, the queen retreated into the palace, where her magical mirror awaited. The mirror, shimmering and alive, observed everything. The queen spoke to it fiercely. "Mirror, mirror, tell me, who is the most beautiful in the world?" The mirror's voice echoed calmly, "The most beautiful in the world is Snow White, and she will remain so forever. Her beauty shines not in her face, but in her heart. She will rule the hearts of the people, with kindness and justice. Your beauty, queen, has never touched your heart. Your outer beauty is powerless." Furious beyond control, the queen shattered the mirror with a violent throw. The mirror broke into countless fragments, and suddenly the queen's body began to crack and shatter as well. Her form turned to swirling black smoke and was drawn into the broken mirror's shards. She was trapped, imprisoned inside the magical mirror for all time. With the queen's defeat, her dark powers vanished with the broken glass. Snow White took her rightful place on the throne. Joy and hope blossomed across the kingdom, peace and justice restored for all. And so, this enchanting tale comes to a close, with Snow White's reign bringing light to the land once more.